It's a very interesting topic. It's about empathy in the customer experience world, and it's about how we can make deeper connections using empathy. So let me start with the very basic of what is empathy. When we started researching about empathy, what we learned is there was this very known person called Titchener who actually coined this word called empathy. And the genesis of this word empathy goes back to a century, goes back a century old, where when you look at what empathy stands for or comes from, it comes from this German word which talks of looking inside. Right? And like all of us have been, know of it in common language, it's about really getting into the shoes of the other person to understand or to feel what they are going through. I thought the best way to also talk about empathy is to show you these two pictures. Do you recognize these? Yeah. So anybody, if you can tell me who's this character in Tare Zameen Par? Of course, Amir Khan, but who was this character? Teacher, right? Ram Shankar Nikumb, right? And he was very well known to be really empathetic in his role in this movie, right? And if I have to talk to you about some characteristics he displayed while in this role, he actually did things like shadowed Avasthi, the child's name, Ishan Avasthi, right? He shadowed the child, watched him from a distance, spoke to his friends, understood what he was doing, why he was doing, did not let judgment of other teachers color his mind, right? Went and spoke to his parents, looked for patterns and trends of the child's book, right? And then really made inferences of what he thought about Ishan as a child, right? So, a lot of ways this is empathy, feeling or getting into the shoes of somebody and understanding what the other person's feeling is from an emotional perspective. Likewise, do you recognize this poster below? Right? So anybody, which movie is this from? I don't have the title here. So, Dear Zindagi, right? So here, Shah Rukh plays the role of Dr. Jahangir, right? And here as well, if you see, his role was really to be playing into Alia's shoes to see what's going on in her mind, recognize patterns, show or understand her, and show her ways to cope with it, right? So I thought these were two great examples to start with while I'm on this topic, and Bollywood always is very easy to relate to, and hence I thought I'd bring them here. Let me also talk to you about this chart that I found very interesting, right, which really talks about where does it start from and where does it end. A lot of people confuse empathy with sympathy, right? And if you really have to look at it on a 2x2 grid of understanding others' experience to willingness to act and support, you'll really find the low of both the grids is really feeling sorry for the other person, which is pity. Second, feeling for the other person, but not able to offer as much support, which really is sympathy. Empathy is extending higher support and feeling for the person, right? And compassion, of course, which is really at the top of it, where you go all out and offer the support. So these really are the sharp differences between these four, and I thought it'd be very useful to show that here. Anybody wants to give a stark example of a common example of sympathy and empathy? Anybody who wants to volunteer to speak about that here?
You can have a sympathy for a writer or somebody who's writing, but in our state we cannot have an empathy. We cannot really feel what.
Yeah, That's a very good example. You can feel sympathy and you can possibly offer some support to an extent, but you can't really put yourself in their shoes. That's a good example. Another example of possibly not showing sympathetic behavior could be, I was watching this, if some of you have seen The Crown, on the series of Crown, where, there was this village in south of Wales where there was a mining incident that happened way back in 1966, where a school, about 166 students lost their lives because of the mining waste covering the entire village. So 200 lives is what was lost at that time. So while the Queen was made aware about it immediately after the incident, she took 8 days to get there. Now, the people of Welsh really craved the attention and the sympathy of the Queen, and she herself mentions it's a regret that she responded after 8 days. Okay. Is this better? Is this better?
Working here now? Is it better now?
So that's another example of sympathy that I could speak of, where sympathetic behavior could not be displayed well enough. So really, empathy is all about seeing with the eyes of another, hearing with the ears of another, and truly feeling with the heart of another. So let's understand what this means for us in business. So, when we speak of, these days, gone are the days where we talk of connecting with consumers just transactionally. When we're talking about making deeper connections, it's about really connecting them at an emotional level. And that's where we think empathy plays a very important role. We've seen it go a long way in terms of building trust, loyalty, winning advocates for your brand, and thereby benefiting from the perspective of upsell, consumers investing more with you, staying with you for a longer time. So those are really the advantages. If you talk about the facets or the elements of empathy that one can go deeper into, the three areas that we've listed here is one, active listening. So when you say you feel for the person, it's really about listening in an empathetic manner and understanding the consumer inside out. It's about the emotional intelligence you apply to make the deeper connections. It's about personalization. This is one thing that we always talk of in the contact center, right? When a consumer calls in, everybody has a quality sheet. There are soft skills. There are mechanisms to grade a call, etc. But when you say personalization, what does that really mean? Something as basic as referring to the consumer's name immediately brings the consumer's attention back to you. So we were talking to people in our call center saying, what does it take for you to refer to the consumer's name at least 3 times? It really was not as easy as we think, because they are taking about 40-50 calls a day. They have to take an attention of memorize the name so that you can't go wrong with the consumer's name as well. So memorize that name and gracefully put it at the opportune times so that the consumer's attention is with you. They found it hard, but they did see that immediately the conversation level between the consumer and them began to go up. We began to see improvement in CSAT scores, in the feedback scores of consumers. So personalization can be something as small as this, and it can go to greater depths like saying, how can you further? So consumer calls for, this is very common, right, for most companies, calls for, I want to get my address changed. So one is about transactionally helping consumers to change the address. The other is getting into a next level conversation of, oh sir, are you moving cities? Are you moving in the same place? And doing a conversation of understanding why the consumer is moving from A place to B place to see how you can help them further. So these are the 3 facets that we really think one can focus on from an empathy point of view. In terms of getting this to the next level, it's really every industry, every organization has their own cycle of what opportunities one gets in driving consumer experience. So map the interaction points, map the points that you see you have an opportunity to give an aha moment, give delightful experience, or have the opportunity to provide frustrating experiences as well. Some things can go wrong, it's okay, it happens. But how can you know where things can go wrong and how can you help them to manage those opportunities better? So start with journey mapping and understand what opportunities you have to provide empathy at each stage. The other thing we really feel is the cornerstone to connecting with consumers, and this is not just applicable to the physical world, it is applicable to the digital world as well, which is, it applies to the physical and the digital world, which is staff being empathetic and the staff that configure work for you from a design thinking perspective in the digital world. So when your teams that configure your chatbots, the teams that train the chatbots, the teams that create experiences for consumers in the online world, be it the app experience, be it the website or portal experience, all of that, they must be equally understanding what empathy means. Your marketing teams, they must be connected to this as well. So training them, the real staff, and empowering them, and in the digital world being able to give real-time experiences with real-time conversations, I think takes the empathy levels up from the perspective of giving consumers a closer view. And then of course have mechanisms to collect feedback so that you are able to improve the experience on an ongoing basis. I want to talk to you about a couple of examples in the physical world. I thought that will bring it to life, saying, what we mean here. I think most people I've met always talk about how there is the human tenderness in Taj really compensates for the experience superlatively, right? They are trained like that. It goes right from the way they are hired. The hiring of people in Taj as a hospitality, I don't know if I have colleagues from Taj over here today, but it goes back to where they hire for attitude, they hire for service, they hire people with higher EQ, emotional quotient, and then of course with training, with the kind of HR practices that Taj follows, employees give their life for servicing their guests. And we all know about the event that happened, the terrorist attack, and how Taj is spoken of for their services. Likewise, another example to talk of is Starbucks. Starbucks as well, they never miss an opportunity to call out your name loud and make sure that you are kept in that place, right? As soon as you enter Taj, first of all, the ambience, the environment, the aroma of coffee increases your appetizes you to want to have a coffee there. They will make sure that even if you're standing in the line with 3-4 people, they will make an eye contact to you, call you out to saying, can I help you make your choice? What would you like to have today? If they are able to recognize you, they will say, you're coming back after a long time, ma'am, all of that. So I thought these two are great examples of how staff display personalization, and thereby empathy naturally comes in. They get the consumer closer to you. In the digital world, I thought 2 examples to speak about where empathy gets displayed. Swiggy, hands down. I don't know how many of you are fans of Swiggy. I definitely am, right? Right from, first of all, they never go wrong with their deliveries. They're great at giving you real-time experiences of, experiences like status of your delivery, or reminding you of last time this is what you ordered, would you like to repeat it, etc. They took my heart away when they did this annual newsletter to me saying, giving me some title, you are some munch manager and these are the frequent meals you've ordered through the year and we'd like you to get more healthy and try these as well out, etc. So they did some persona and segmentation on me, checked out my preferences and also value added to me by giving me some advice. Likewise, another example of Swiggy is during COVID, they used a very opportune moment and spoke of, we'd be delighted if you can come and dine at these centers when COVID was going off, and saying that, hotels would benefit. And if you do this, we will contribute to, a common cartel and grow the tribe of cloud kitchen and stuff like that. So I thought that they were able to connect purpose, experiences, and outcomes for business and consumers very well. Another example is Flipkart, of course, even Amazon for that matter. I think they're great at checking preferences of consumers, using digital and automation to be able to display, how to use preferences and take that to the next level. Let me give you an insight closer home, which is I come from life insurance and I work with Tata Life Insurance. What do we do? So our vision is to really move from being an insurance provider to a partner in the consumer's mind for life. Most of our policies are long-term in nature, so consumers stay with us for an average of 15 years. So across the policy life cycle, right from the time we onboard them to the servicing stage where it's more like maintaining them, to the time when we end the relationship, which can be at the time of maturity claims or if there is a death claim, that's another stage that we go through. So we've actually mapped the touch points like this. And like I was telling you, this is just an illustration of how you can go about this. Map the opportunity points where you have customer interactions and see which are the opportunities you want to focus on. So there are 19 such touch points we've identified across learn, buy, service and claim, where we see there is an opportunity to make an impact on the consumer. From here, we've chosen the most important ones which have like a deep impact on the consumer. We've identified 4 of them. Across each one of them have one. We've identified 4 of them and we really go hard to can you just help me move this to the next slide? So like for example, in the buy journey, when a consumer is purchasing insurance, the experience with the representative, be it the agent, the person at the bank, or if you've bought it online, the telecaller who's speaking to you, they have a lasting impression of what the consumer thinks about the company. So making sure that you do an authentic job there, you understand the consumer's needs. Apart from, of course, life insurance is a very, it's not in the category of pull, like hospitality or, your e-commerce, etc. We are in the category of push, but even then, making sure that we align consumers' needs to a product that is sold, which is financial need analysis, becomes very important to do. So at onboarding, the focus is really to provide a warm welcome, a branded welcome. The consumer feels very happy to have joined Tata IA. In fact, this is also extended to all our employees. Our HR practices are great. We have a process of Shubh Aram, even for our employees. People are greeted with a bouquet of flowers. There's a picture taken, given to the employee, so that's with the employee for a lifetime. And it becomes a special moment for the consumer. Likewise, in the servicing stage, while everything else is normal, people are used to LIC and many other companies that serve insurance today, we found the aha moment to be at 2 places, actually 3, but I'll talk to you about the 2 first. One, when a consumer needs money. They are invested with you. After 5 years, they want a loan. They want it real quick. They begin to compare you with financial services, NBFCs for 30 minutes mein loan mil jata hai, etc. So we worked on that. Annuitants, consumers who are dependent on receiving the annuity money on time, and sometimes there are these procedures to follow of giving a life certificate. That experience had to be made really memorable and easy for consumers to do, especially because sometimes senior citizens need help with filling forms or need help with understanding. English may not be the most preferred language. If it's video-based, help with technology, etc. So we focused on that to create aha moments. Premium certificate for tax filing. Everybody remembers that I need a premium receipt at the time when the companies remind you that you need to give in your investment proofs. So that becomes like a very important moment. So we've enabled that on WhatsApp. We've enabled that through our contact center saying, sir, right across, as you're speaking, I've sent it to you, kind of a thing. So that really makes the consumer very happy. So there, we also take a moment to explain to consumers what the recent tax norms are, so that we educate them on how they can use this as they go along. And of course, at the claims experience, the claimants who come for claims, they have gone through a tough time. So what we do is, at the end of the claim, we actually plant a sapling in the name of the consumer who has passed away, and we give them that certificate. So they feel very happy that we have invested in the name of the person who's passed away and left a memory for them. So these are some of the touch points that we've identified, and using the cornerstone of empathy, done something different. So that's all I had, and I will sum it up by saying, if you want to make an impact in your organization from a consumer experience point of view and using empathy as a cornerstone, start with mapping your journey points. How many journey points do you have where you can make an impact? Identify key stakeholders in your organization. This is not just the job of the customer service team or the customer experience team. It spans across everybody in the organization, people who are customer facing, as well as support teams like training, etc., as well as support teams like HR, etc., who bring you people who are ultimately responsible for serving the consumers. So start with mapping your stakeholders. Third, identify what shifts in behaviors to make to display empathy. It's very essential to figure out what will you change in the behaviors. Like the example I gave you about the contact center, calling out the consumer's name thrice. As simple as that. What is it for your industry? Be it in telecom, in banks, etc. You will have to identify that and put down the do's and don'ts. Like don'ts can be things like, for our industry, it is like, I don't think consumers like it if you call them after 8 o'clock for an insurance policy. I don't think they like to be followed up for paying of premiums or for submission of documents after a particular time. Seek permission, understand the customer's plight. They are not here waiting to do your insurance policy, right? You have to be cognizant and empathetic towards the consumer's situation. So identify those behaviors and list down your do's and don'ts. And lastly, I think it all works when you start creating heroes of guys who display the right kind of service. So recognize empathy leaders, glorify them, and make this a continuous platform in your organization. That's all I had. Thank you very much. It was a pleasure being here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. Do we have any questions?
Hello. Thanks, Gayatri. That was a wonderful presentation. I'm from the logistics industry. I work for DHL Express in customer service. So my question is that empathy is a very touchy-feely, soft thing. You know, it can't be measured like your grade of service at the contact center. So how do you propose that we measure empathy and see that we are making strides in that respect?
Right. Thanks, Sharbani. And I must tell everybody, she's actually my mentor. She was my manager very early on in my organization. So, Sharbani, I can only try my best to tell you around this. But someone I've seen with real humility. So I don't think I can really tell you this, but let me try my best. I think the larger point is we have to keep at doing multiple things in these softer aspects, which will at the end culminate to consumers giving you positive word of mouth, referring you to others, investing more with you in the form of upsell, talking well about you. When Taj started off, it's not as though Taj knew they were going to be, they had it in their vision that they will be the best in hospitality. But it is really all the hard work that they've put in for years, which has got them to this level. The management was shocked when they saw that during the terrorist attack, the way the staff went out of their way to serve consumers. They were so amazed, right? The empathy levels that they could show, putting their lives before the guest's life. So while we should have a metric to measure this, and there should be mechanisms to measure it, which I'll talk to you about, I think in empathy kind of thing, it's about carrying that leap of faith. It intuitively is the right thing to do from a psychological perspective. We are all humans. At the end, we want to be understood. So we should take strides to making headways forward on this significantly. And eventually we will see the ultimate goal get met. But there are ways to measure this so that you know you're on the right track, which is by doing diagnostics. So what we've done is we reach out to 300 odd customers in a quarter, and there are mechanisms we follow to understand. There are questions like, so do you think you were understood well? Do you think we spent time to, did our staff spend time to understand your query, your clarification, or your response? So based on those questions, we have like a metric which says whether we were empathetic enough. So there's a diagnostic research-based tool we apply every quarter to see whether we are moving. Another thing that is there in the market today, there are many questionnaires which also tell you how empathetic your staff is. It helps you grade your staff on empathy. You can use that too to measure just on generic scenarios how your staff grades on empathy. And then you can determine what programs to offer to them to change, to make the behavioral shift in your industry.
Thank you. That was very nice.
Thank you, Shivani.
Hi, Gayatri.
Hi.
Myself, Is it audible?
Yeah.
So I've been working in banking for almost 15 years and very similar to your industry. One thing is that when we talk about, and this industry is all about service, products are very much commoditized. Now, when we talk about the service, it's totally very individualistic. We know the kind of attrition we have and the number of trainings we do, and talking about the people who are sitting in our branch offices and all. How do you ensure that the consistency in the customer service is continued? That is the first question. Second thing, when the customer is visiting your offices or the branches, that is where he's investing more time than reaching out to your customer care. So that means he's more invested. And you don't even know the identity of the person till the time he mentions about it. So how do you try to focus on the customer service when they are visiting your branches?
Right. Thanks, Pawan, for that question. Again, a very good question from your side. You're right. I think the opportunity to make a larger impact is when you meet the consumer face to face. So when a consumer visits the branch, it's a great moment for you. It's not as though consumers today, especially after COVID, a lot of the walk-ins have come down. So if people are coming to your branch, at least for tier 1, this is true. Tier 2, tier 3, the situation has gone back to pre-COVID days. So in a situation like that, I think I would go back to what I was highlighting earlier, which is identify what are the opportunities that they've walked in for to be mapped to how you can create or display behaviors to show care, warmth, empathy, and how you can use that to build relations and then eventually move it to the next level. Even for banks, just like insurance, I think while we're all in business, we want to upsell, we want to cross-sell, etc. I think it's very important to figure when to strike that conversation. When the consumers come in, you directly jump on to talking about, I have these products, I want to talk to you about a new thing that's come about. It may work for a consumer, it may not work for a consumer. So you may need to take help of technology to recognize what's the persona of this consumer. Is this person just needing some amount of engagement this time? And maybe a follow-up after a month or two to be out-called through the RM to be able to position a product. So just nudge, make an impact, leave it at that. Next time go back and talk about a new plan. So I think it will have to be thought of by persona of consumers, by transactions to figure your next plan of action. So your action palette will need to be determined based on that. So here I would say, especially because banks have a lot of consumers as well, you will need to use a combination of technology, enable your frontline staff with this action palette so that they determine their behaviors and their actions in that way. Especially banks are very good at lobby management. They make sure consumers are queued up well, they're made comfortable, etc. So those are things that must be continued, and use of technology, mapping the pen picture of the consumer, and next steps of actions, I would think would help.
Sure, thank you. And thanks for the insightful session.